Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members. For the record, my name is Carrol Abel. I'm here representing the Hidden Valley Wild Horse Protection Fund and the Alliance of Wild Horse Advocates, and naturally myself. I'm obviously a wild horse advocate. I'm proud to be a wild horse advocate. I've been doing it for about 15 years. I'm equally proud to be a Nevadan. I moved here in '86, so I've been here about 25 years now. Nevada's in my heart, and that's where I'm going to stay. There's no doubt in my mind that we need to protect Nevada's waters. We've got so little, and we really do need to protect them. But I have to say that I'm confused, really confused about the purpose of this bill. At the Assembly Committee hearing, I heard statements such as, this bill only clarifies that NDOW isn't responsible for wild horses, clarity for the state engineer, and prevents erosion of water rights. A lot of that we heard again today. The tone of the testimony, again at the Assembly hearing, was that this had nothing to do with wild horses. We love wild horses, and as a matter of fact, that we love wild horses was stated more than once. I had a conversation with Assemblyman Gokachia, and when I asked him about the purpose of the bill, he said to me that bottom line is to clarify wildlife purviews under the state of Nevada. I hate to sound snotty here, but my mom had told me when somebody's trying to sell me something, I need to tell them to put it in writing. And in essence, I kind of did. I submitted an amendment to the bill based on these statements. My amendment is asking that wild horses and burros be given beneficial rights, beneficial use rights. But you know, since I submitted that bill, a lot of things have changed. There was an article, an AP article, that was published yesterday. And it quotes our deputy water engineer saying that the bill won't allow us to issue any more water rights for wild horses. It quotes Assemblyman Bobdian, the co-sponsor of the bill, is saying the goal is not to perpetuate the horse problem by making water available. It also quotes Mr. Davis as saying wild horses are currently causing significant damage to the range. This, I'm sorry, it confuses me. What is this bill really about? Is the bill about the wild horses, or is it about the water? I think we really need to make up our minds here. When I add the statements, these statements that I've just told you about, to a draft letter written by the Board of Wildlife's Feral Horse Committee that was addressed to our state engineer, I really begin to want it. The letter itself tells the state engineer, and I quote, to instruct the federal agencies to immediately remove any free-roaming wild horse and burros that are making unlawful use of Nevada waters. That's a strong statement, and it says an awful lot to me. There also appears to be a lot of confusion when it comes to the water laws themselves. I was told by Assemblyman Gokachia that the BLM should be using Federal Reserve water rights. But Water Resources has told me that Federal Reserve water rights don't come into play here, not on the HMAs. And even if they did, adjudication of Federal Reserve water rights takes about 10 years or more. They also told me that wild horses could still be assigned beneficial rights, even though they wouldn't be wildlife, that it was a judgment call. That things such as dust control, while not on the list of beneficial rights, were given beneficial rights all the time. Now that seems to be in question. And what about lawsuits against the state? That was addressed a little bit today, but there's a lot of people that believe that there are going to be a tremendous number of lawsuits, and I'm one of those. Do we really want to risk the expenditure of funds on lawsuits that we don't have? The committee only has 1 week remaining before a decision has to be made on this. And I would hope that within that week, you'll be able to get a full legal analysis of the repercussions associated with this bill. Not just a surface summary, but a full legal analysis. Personally, I urge you to vote no on the bill, but at the very least, I pray that not one of you will vote yes without getting that full legal analysis. I'm chomping at the bits to address a lot of the things that were said in testimony earlier, but in the interest of time, I'm going to leave it to my esteemed colleagues, because I'm sure at least a couple of them will address those issues. So I thank you very much.
Hello, committee members, and thank you, Chairman and committee members, for this opportunity to speak. My name is Deniz Bolbol, and I'm speaking on behalf of the American Wild Horse Preservation Campaign, which is a coalition of more than 40 organizations throughout the country, including the ASPCA, Humane Society, Cloud Foundation, all the organizations working on the wild horse and burro issue. On behalf of ASPCA and the American Wild Horse Preservation Campaign, I want to make sure you all got a copy of this letter from the lawyer we engaged with Schiff Harden. He did what I think your staff really should be doing for you, which is a legal analysis of the ramifications of this bill. To rely on the National Cattlemen's Association former president for legal advice, I would say, would be, erroneous at best.
Let me just say this, we don't rely on them for legal advice. We rely on our LCB staff when and if we need legal advice. So just for the record, that needs to be very, very clear. We don't have them come in and say, hey, can you give us a legal analysis? Legislators can ask a lobbyist questions, and they can respond appropriately at that time. But by all means, this body does not rely on outside legal advice unless an individual wants to request that. They can do that on their own.
I'm glad to hear that. I thought I heard earlier you said Joe should stick around in case you needed some legal questions answered.
Because he's a lawyer and who he represents, we can ask him questions. Sometimes committee members might ask a witness to come back up again.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify that I think that, it's really important for you all to understand what the ramifications are. It's one thing for the cattlemen and the hunters to say, this is just closing a loophole, and then for us to say, no, this could have real ramification. It could be catastrophic for wild horses. I wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, I think the number one question you need to ask, and I think I would urge you to ask the state engineer, under what authority is given to him to issue a certificated water right for livestock and then use it for wild horses? Because he said that the sanctuary could get water rights for livestock and then use it for wild horses in the sanctuary. As far as I know, there's no authority to do that. And so I would like, you need to find out what are the authorities. Also, when we keep hearing people say, this is not going to change anything for wild horses, they're just going to drink today, tomorrow, and the next day. Under what authority are they going to have the right to drink water today, tomorrow, and the next day? There will be no authority, because right now the authority falls under their classification as wildlife. Yes, the state cannot issue tags for them, so they're not managed as other wildlife, but that's merely because the federal government has issued special protections for them. So I think you need to ask the bigger questions. What's the authority that guarantees water will be still around for wild horses? I want to just point out, Nina Nappy even said she thinks they're not wildlife, but she thinks they should be qualified as a beneficial use. This is huge. If these horses are not qualified as a beneficial use, you all know the water rights. You got to have a beneficial use to get water. There are minor ways to use water, like for dust, but this is not like, this is not the major way water is allocated in the state and certificated. So unless they qualify as a beneficial use, these horses are eventually going to get shortchanged. I also would like to say that, I have to agree that, 100% this is going to initiate litigation for the state. I don't know that that's a motivating factor for you all to take closer consideration of this bill before passing it out of committee, but 100% it's going to initiate litigation because you're going to be challenging the federal government's ability to get new certificated water rights for wild horses. I spoke with the state engineer's office, and they said very clearly, the BLM would not qualify. No new certificated water rights would be issued for wild horses and burros. Inside, outside HMAs, private lands, no. If they get declassified as wildlife, they will not be qualifying for certificated water rights. So this is huge. Now, the question is, how do you keep them away from the water source? Well, that's another challenge because you have a fence-out state. So that's another challenge. But the platform gets laid for, catastrophic consequences for the horses. And then lastly, I think what we hear is you have to listen to what the speaker said before. They were all cattlemen and hunters, and so we know they have a vested interest. They were the sponsors. They were the ones who asked the assemblyman to introduce the bill. So we know they support this because they have something to gain from it. And I think you have to listen to what they said. They said horses should not be beneficial use. I have Joe Guild said it, and also another one of the speakers said, and I could look for my notes, but they do not want them qualified as a beneficial use. That's what the foundation is behind this bill. And if it's not, if you have to vote for it, I urge you not to vote for it, but add the amendment that wild horses are beneficial use. Thank you so much.
Anytime.